The reality is that you can't stop the stress. The reality is that stress is around for us everywhere. What we can do is build our resilience to stress. We need to manage the everyday stressors. We need to build our resilience so that our body, exactly as we heard, needs to be this finely tuned machine that manages extremely well. So the facts speak for themselves as to why Stress Awareness Day.
Do not underestimate the body that you are in. It's an incredible instrument. It's more sophisticated than the NASA space rocket. It's more sophisticated than the android which is yet to be generated. It's more sophisticated than the humanoid or even God 0.20, which man himself is going to create. It's far more sophisticated than anything you've ever known. The intelligence is inside you, not just the brain, it's inside your every cell. It's capable of changing, repairing, everything, regenerating, all on its own. So all your problems are a problem of your own making because you abuse the body or you use it improperly or you don't use it enough. Either way, it's the food, it's the rest, it's the activity that you take. When I say rest, it's not about sleep, it's about being restful. It's putting your mind at ease. Those are the important things. What you eat and what you don't eat. I'm sure one of the speakers is very enlightened in this aspect and she's going to talk much more about it. So mine is more of an editorial kind of a thing really, in the beginning of a journal. I've written papers, so that's the way my mind works. But this is the most incredible piece of thing that you have. Now, when you abuse it, this, by the way, I found this sculpture outside a really nice pub in Birmingham. This is what you can make it. This homeostasis, it can tilt very easily, very quickly. You know, just the way you breathe now, you know, you teach them in yoga how depth of the breath should be, how you should position yourself, how you should sit and everything. You should change the pattern, you change the body posture in some way, your pattern changes, your breathing changes, everything changes. If it can respond to simply those kind of postures, imagine the toll it must be taking with stress or with certain other kinds of unfavorable body postures while you're doing computing or sitting long hours on a thing. And that's what man is becoming. In the last 100 years, man is becoming a monkey again, at the mercy of another machine. Right? This has happened only in the last 100 years. That was not what man was meant to be. He was meant to be a runner, a hunter, a gatherer, and all that sort of thing. Not this. This is unnatural. And we have to deal with the consequences. There will be physical consequences when you have. When I first came to this country 11 years ago, and I was in an academic position earlier in India, of course, lots of people around me, I find here, are so stressed. They are always about stress management and everything. If you truly ask me, and with no offense and apologies, I personally feel that there is nothing like stress really. Because stress is a making up of your own mind. It's an inability to handle your own mind. It's the inability to really deal with the day-to-day things which you are built to do, simply. And that's the fundamental problem with stress. It really, you manage things which are dear to you. You manage things, your property, you manage your accounts, finances, your children, your family. Stress is not something to be managed. Why is it generating in the first place? Because you've lost that homeostasis within your own self, essentially. That's the whole problem.
So we are looking at important dietary steps, and the biggest one, and I've been in this field now over 30 years, but it's only in this last year or so as really the concept of sugar being the culprit has hit the headlines. It's always been fat has been the baddie, but we're now realising that actually we're focusing on the wrong food. So it is about eating little and often. It's not allowing to get to the point where this hypoglycemia, this low blood sugar hits, because that's when the stress hormones are going to be released. There will be improvements in feeling less stressed because there's less of those hormones being released just due to your pattern of eating. More energy because you're not on that roller coaster of highs and lows of energy. Cravings for sweet foods and carbohydrates will go, because if you don't drop into that hypoglycemia, your body's not sending you off for a quick fix. Blood sugar steadies, and so do the moods, because that's not happening on a roller coaster as well. So the benefits are enormous. Simple, practical steps that all of us can do on a daily basis. So it's about also thinking, a lot of people, and especially women, will diet. And that actually to the body is another stress. We know that calorie restriction will increase cortisol because it's a famine. Your body doesn't know you're doing it consciously, and there's now work looking around concerns around intermittent fasting. So people who are under high pressure in a job or a lot of stress will actually do badly on these 5-2 alternate day fasting because you're adding another stress to the body because the body registers there's a famine going on. It's a survival situation. It doesn't see this as you're doing it consciously. So it's all about eliminating sugar and refined carbohydrates. We talk about low glycemic index, high glycemic index, but it's thinking about the added sugar that's in the food and things like white bread, white pasta, anything that's going to hit the bloodstream too quickly is going to set you off on this roller coaster. And now when we're looking at these foods, they're actually, this added sugar is in everything. And I see people in the clinic saying, well, I'm actually eating really healthily. I'm eating a low-fat organic fruit yoghurt. Forget the fruit in that yoghurt, there could be 8 teaspoons of added sugar. And some of the research now is showing we could be adding or getting up to 18 teaspoons of added sugar a day, even if you don't put it in your tea and coffee, because it's in the tomato ketchup, the baked beans, the spaghetti sauces, the mayonnaise, the salad dressings. It's hidden in all of these foods, so it's actually making the situation worse. People will realise it's in the cakes and biscuits, but are not consciously thinking of it in the savoury foods that we're eating. And this was a Served by Which magazine looking at the sugar content of the breakfast cereals, and actually the children's cereals are the worst culprits. And even in a small bowl of cereal, there's more sugar than a donut. It's just the perception and the marketing on the cereal, you know, it's high in fibre, you know, fortified with this, that and the other. The perception is that it's actually, you know, a good product, but it's not, and it will have a lot of added sugar in there, broken down into different sugars, but it will be quite, you know, obvious in that ingredient list if we look.
When you're stressed, what do you do? Well, some people do, maybe less so now, but they used to smoke, okay, and obviously you know that smoking is bad for you. Smoking, stress causes people to smoke, that can causes the detrimental effect of smoking, which is ultimately more breathless, can cause high blood pressure and all the adverse reactions. And we know that smoking is linked to cardiovascular death and morbidity, and that's a proven thing. Now, long-term impacts of stress, there are, you know, I talked about the increase in heart rate, the increase in blood pressure. There's also evidence to suggest that it can also increase cholesterol level as well. We know that some cholesterol are good, some cholesterol are bad, and looking at patients with cardiovascular disease or people with cardiovascular disease, there is a high incidence of high cholesterol. There is a correlation, which is why we take a lot of patients with cardiovascular disease take statins to lower the cholesterol, to reduce that risk. But if you get a combination of this, we get increasing weight gain, high blood pressure, increasing cholesterol, increasing blood sugar, you get what we call the metabolic syndrome. Okay? And these patients do a lot worse than most of these other patients without these multiple conditions. So stress can induce this, so that's not a good thing. So this is just, I just picked out the news search, cholesterol and stress, and there was an article saying that there's a direct correlation with stress and cholesterol level. Maybe because when you're stressed, you eat more, eat less healthily, you snack or you eat not at the right time, and therefore you may be not actually a causation, but maybe an association with it. But nevertheless, there is evidence that it actually increases the serum cholesterol.
We're in an interesting world right now, and I think the kind of context is that what we're seeing playing out in the workplace and in business is this clash between two planets. On the one hand, there are those of us who are born physical. We build houses, we make cars, we make food. We see the world in a very physical way. We use technology to support what we do, but we don't see ourselves as being technology businesses. We're now clashing with a world of people who are born digital. They don't see cars, houses, people. All they see is data. And their view is that in order to succeed in an industry, you have to turn it into data, apply the right algorithms, and you can win in anything. So someone like Google is just as happy running a search engine as it is running 2 airports or the world's biggest mobile phone operating system, a vehicle that's now driven more than 2 million, a driverless vehicle that's driven more than 2 million miles, and they now have a life extension company that they hope will extend your life expectancy by at least 50 years. And they're kind of at the conservative end of that. So, and you're seeing more and more of this, that people are saying, actually, it doesn't matter what the industry is. If we have the data, we can turn that business into technology, and we can automate it, and we can create that future. That's one of the biggest sources of stress that we see right now, is that clash between the old world where we thought people were central to the story, and the new world where we're seeing more and more of these billion-dollar corporations with almost no employees. And so that kind of, how that plays out is going to be critical in the coming years. You can't read this, it doesn't really matter. And we see sort of 10 disruptions emerging out of that around technology, around the creation of new industries that have hardly any employees, the disruption of old industries, that clash between do we automate or do we still keep people in the story? And there are some very big disruptions coming that are shaping that workplace of the future.
It's now time for the panel discussion that we're going to have. And I'm going to start off with a roving mic going on out there. And also, when you do wish to ask a question, can I ask you to please raise your hand, the mic will go to you, and introduce yourself. So without further ado, I tell you what, I'll start with a question for the panel. For all of those of you who don't know me, my name is Deep Raja. I do a radio show on Dilsa Radio. And when I do Let's Talk, one of the key questions that I get asked, panel, is when I go to a doctor to say that I'm stressed, when I go to a doctor to say I can't take it anymore, I'm about to break down, I'm tired, I don't know what's going on, the doctor says to me, why don't you just take some paracetamol and just take a couple of days off? So my question to you, panel, today is, when is stress going to be taken very seriously as a condition, as an illness, by the medical profession?
I think that I'd say early stages of looking at stress as an important issue, as a mental health issue. And part of the reasons for National Stress Awareness Day is that we actually are in a situation where we are trying to lift off the lid and start looking at what's going on. Do individuals go to the doctor and say they're stressed? Yes, well, the doctor will probably give them paracetamol, they may give them antidepressants and send them on their way and tell them to take 2 or 3 days off. Yes, that's a common situation. So really the whole point of today is to actually start looking at what that individual can do to actually start helping themselves and not just start taking tablets.
The trouble is a lot of stress that's involved or the patient that I see is subjected to is like work or family or finance, but they can't really sort of leave and run away. So it is up to how they manage it, how they respond, how they react to whatever stress it is. And as a doctor, you're trying to make them more resilient. You're going to try to help them manage their stress. It's easy just to take a few days because obviously get away from the stress is always going to be helpful. But the trouble is you come back to it and the same thing happens again, and it just becomes a recurring theme.
One of the interesting things is this is one of those areas where technology might help. If you look at teenage kids, they're far more happy talking to an app about BD and about all sorts of other things than they are to a human. And the technology doesn't make judgments. It doesn't say, all stress, that's a thing that we don't talk about in society, or erectile dysfunction or whatever. It treats them all the same, whether it's cancer, heart disease, diabetes or any condition. It just takes the data, it works with it, and it comes up and says, based on probability, here's what you should do next. Here's what we think you should do. So this is one of those areas where technology might actually help people to find outlets, to A, express their concerns, and B, find practical and useful solutions to deal with it.
Okay, and very quickly, Dr. Glanville, do you want to comment? Again, people say, when are you going to take stress seriously?
Yeah, I think it needs to be taken seriously, and obviously GPs may only have 5 to 10 minutes with the patient, so there isn't time to have that, time to talk about it and go into depth, other than giving a prescription for an antidepressant or a tranquilizer. So there needs to be an outlet or some referral system so people can be helped really in depth for that situation.
Okay. There's a microphone just by you.
Yeah, the whole idea is to explore this first of all. First of all, it's always about acceptance, recognition that there is a need. This is our best market feasibility study that we could have done. And we've actually closed the invitations to even try it after some point because we couldn't afford to have so many, we can't entertain more than these many people. So clearly there's a lot of interest. Between yesterday and today, after we put the LinkedIn share, we have had 2,000 views of the LinkedIn post. Okay, we are still a relatively new organization, so on a business perspective, of course, we are happy. The point is, it clearly shows us there is a huge demand for this problem. It has always been underestimated. It's always been shoved under the carpet. Most institutions and financial institutions, and nobody wants to talk about it. Because when you talk about it, you recognize it, and therefore you have to deal with it. Nobody wants to do that. It's again the preventive thing. You know, it's whether you want to find it and fix it, or whether you want to actually deal with it head on. And that's a huge problem.
We're going to do our very best to ensure that we do talk about stress. That companies, as Caroline mentioned, companies actually should be listening, but listening attentively. Companies really should be valuing people as their most valuable asset and appreciating that actually they'll get more from people if they listen to them, if they care about them. And they don't just bring in some stress management training as a tick box exercise. It has to become part of the culture. Nutrition, looking after your heart, it has to become a part of that healthy corporate culture. Can we go beyond stress management? The answer is we can, but I'm going to say it again. It's work in progress. And it's not just us on the platform that have a part to play. Each and every one of you has a part to play. Encouraging people to talk to you, making time to listen to our children, not with the phone in our hand. Actually, making time for our families, making time for our employees. Each and every one of us has those moments, has that opportunity. The stresses in the world today, in every single country, abound. They are there. They are actually not going to go away. It is our responsibility to be as resilient to those stressors that are there. It is our responsibility to understand what's happening to our bodies. And it's our responsibility to take action. Thank you all very much for being here, giving of your time. Thank you to Leica Health for supporting us, for sponsoring the day here today. It has been a great opportunity. You've all involved yourselves. Thank you all very much. Tonight has been a great evening. We have had a wealth of speakers here, all talking about stress, talking about nutrition, and talking about the future. But at the end of the day, we know one thing for sure. Stress is not going to go away, and we need to be able to be more resilient in order to manage the daily stresses that we're going through. So I look forward to National Stress Awareness Day 2017, which is going to be entitled Speak Up and Speak Out About Stress.
Today we are very, very proud to be hosting this amazing show that we've just put on with the help from Carole, who's the founder of the National Stress Awareness Day. We had some amazing discussions around the nutrition aspects of it, the corporate aspects of it, the way technology is going to transform the future workplace and how that's going to have a bearing on stress. How do we deal with the find and fix it approach in traditional medicine, and how do we take it a step further and actually prevent it from happening in the first place by nipping it in the bud. We've also had a cardiologist on board who has spoken to us about heart-related stress, or stress-related heart rather, problems. And all of those. So it's been quite a lot that has been taken in. I'm sure the people have really enjoyed. I think the take-home message at the end was that we should not just manage people, we really need to include them in our plans, whether they are corporate plans, whether they are in various smaller, medium enterprises in workplaces. But I think it's been a really interactive session. There were a lot of questions raised during the question and answer session as well. Overall, it was quite an amazing experience, I think. People enjoyed networking after everything as well.
It's been a real privilege and a great education to be part of the event here today on National Stress Awareness Day. I've learnt an awful lot, and one of the big things I've learned is what an enormous challenge we have to get employers to recognise how important stress is in their organisations. It's not something that you can do a tick box and say, oh, we've done a stress training. It's not enough. Stress is very personal to every individual. It manifests in different ways. And it's a huge responsibility for any employer to know enough to be able to recognise stress in their organisation and to support the people in such a way that they are not inhibited from giving of their best. And at the event here, we've had some great speakers and some really brilliant insights. And I think that as Stress Awareness Day grows in popularity, and next year it's got a great focus already, I think it's going to be an enormous benefit for employers all over the country.
I found the event today absolutely intriguing because I'm very passionate about National Stress Awareness Day, and also the fact that I've learned some really useful information in terms of, yes, it's National Stress Awareness today, but what do we do tomorrow and then thereafter? So I'm going to take some of the tools that I've learned today and apply those in my organisation.
I've been here at the Stress Awareness conference. The thing that I most enjoyed about today was the whole sugar aspect, because I'm a behavioural specialist and weight loss is my speciality, and it's really the focus on sugar, because sugar is the big danger area for people at the moment, and awareness is really high, but there's still 92% of people who know they're eating too much sugar but are actually not doing an awful lot about it.
Hello, I'm Caroline Heward. I'm just finished being at the National Stress Awareness Day that Carole Spiers has organised, and it's been amazing. One of the things that I've really benefited from is the interesting concept that everybody's talking about the mind, how the mind has been creating the problems and how we actually deal with it, because the mind creates the manifestation of what's going on in the body. I really have been absolutely surprised at how everybody has been talking about this. Insightful, interesting, can't wait to be part of more of this.
I think this evening's been really interesting in terms of exploring the health dimension, the nutritional dimension, the principles of stress management, and then getting people to think about how the context of work is going to change and what that's going to mean for the changing nature of stress and the changing approaches we have to helping individuals navigate their own way through the next 10 years.
It's been a really great evening. I've learned so much about stress, the causes of it, ways to manage it myself through diet, and interesting the effects on the heart. It's been a really interesting evening. I'm really glad I came.